Hello viewers, and welcome back to another video. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be taking a look at this Vaio tap from around 2013. It's an SVJ202, around about a 20-inch screen. It's an all-in-one computer and it's a touch screen, so it's like a tablet PC. It has a stand at the back which allows you to fold it up and lie it down completely flat onto a table. You do get a keyboard with it. When it was new, you did get a keyboard with it, but I didn't get that with it. I bought this about 5 years ago second hand. And I've used it for all kinds of things. In fact, when I first started doing YouTube, I used it as my video editor until I outgrew it, or until the software outgrew it, should I say. It's got an i5 processor. I think it's a third generation. I think it's 4 GB of RAM. So it's quite a nippy machine. These days I've just been using it for web browsing and iTunes, things like that. Unfortunately, it's developed a fault. It will randomly shut down when you least expect it. There's no pattern to this. It can be on for 10 or 20 minutes or an hour or more, and it will just completely shut down without any warning. Now I can hear a fan in the back of it, so I know that's still running, although I've installed some fan software to allow you to monitor the fans and see how they're running and what temperatures things are getting to. Now this is saying there's 2 fans in the machine, but only one of them is spinning, which I find rather odd, because usually when one of the fans stops working, the computer will not come on at all, in my experience with previous Vaios. In some of my older computers, I've noticed that the fans in the laptops especially get really clogged up with dust and fluff. So I'm hoping it's going to be something simple like that. I've also read that sometimes thermal paste can need replacing. So I've got some of that ready to do that should it need it. So we'll take a look at around the connectivity in a moment. And then we'll take it apart and have a look inside and see what's going on in there, if anything at all. On the top right of the screen there, you have some LED indicators showing you wireless hard drive activity, charging state and power. There's also a webcam across the top, and then at the bottom there you've got a Windows button. Around the back, on the computer's left hand side, looking at the back of it, is a Ethernet port and DC input. This actually charges using a standard 19.5 volt Vaio laptop charger, which is quite handy. And the buttons on this machine are Vaio Assist, Rotate Lock, Volume Up and Down, and Power On and Off. And on the right side, looking from the back, there is a SD card slot which will also take Sony's Memory Stick Duo, mic socket, headphone socket, and 2 USBs. Always been disappointed actually with how many USBs are on this. We could have done with at least one more. And then across the back on the right hand side you have an NFC connection point. And then when you remove the cover you have access to the battery area and the hard drive and memory expansion. This came with a 1TB hard drive, mechanical drive when I bought it. I changed it out to an SSD and it did help improve performance. I had actually already started to disassemble this computer, and then I stopped and thought I'll make a video about this because there's not a lot of videos out there to look at referencing how to disassemble it. There are arrows pointing to all the screws you need to remove, and there's also some little covers as well you need to remove. But what I'll do is I'll record the reassembly of this, so if you're not unsure about what you need to undo, you can obviously watch that back to see where the screws actually need to come out. One of the most important things to remember when you're taking the back of one of these off, and probably other computers as well, there are some connectors you need to undo. Otherwise, if you try and take the back off while they're attached, you're going to end up ripping some ribbon cables, and that's going to ruin your day. There are 4 on this particular model. You've got this one here, which is an Ethernet cable, and also the power cable. That one there, that little ribbon cable, there's NFC, and this one here is the controls at the top of the computer. There's no stupid little clips on these. You literally just pull them out by the little tags, which is nice for a change. Because on some of these, some of you will know, you have those little bridge clips you roll back, and they can sometimes snap off if you're heavy-handed. Getting the surround off isn't as easy as I'm going to be showing you now. And what you need to do is get a pry tool around that edge between the screen and the back casing. And then once you start getting that off, get yourself part way around, it will just unclip. So let's have a look inside. Just show you the back of this quickly actually while I think about it. That's your Ethernet connector there, that port, that's the cable there. That's your buttons at the top, which is that ribbon cable there. Then your NFC pad, which goes through here to that small ribbon cable. Apart from that, there's nothing else to connect. And here's the inside of it. It's pretty sparse. I was quite surprised actually at how little there was in this. But I suppose primarily it is really just a laptop computer, really, just without the keyboard and the mouse built in. There's your motherboard there, 2 RAM expansions, CPU fan, which runs there under there. That's your CPU there. I think that's the graphics card. Battery connecting point, USBs and audio. One of the things I thought was quite funny on this actually, when I opened it, was that little USB connector there, wireless adapter, which is for the keyboard. It's almost like someone's made this computer up out of something else and they put this USB adapter on there as an afterthought. It's like something you'd make yourself if you were putting a computer into a frame to hang on a wall. But it's very clean inside, and the fan has got hardly any dust on it at all. I've no idea why it keeps cutting out like this, like it does. So I'll be taking off the CPU fan and undoing the copper conductor there, cleaning off the thermal paste and putting some new stuff on. That's the only thing I can think of doing. There's not much information about this actually when you look on the online. Lots of people complaining about Vaio shutting down randomly, but usually it's because fans are failing or they're clogged up with dust, so it can't cool it down properly. But as you can see, this is quite clean. There's hardly any dust in it at all actually on that fan, and there's no dust anywhere else. So let's get that off next, shall we? And clean it off and see if we'll soak test it, and I'll let you know at the end of the video if it made any difference. Looks like there's some tiny plastic washers underneath of these. Just unplug the fan. Interesting thing to note on this computer, there is actually only one fan, even though the fan software is reporting that there was 2, but in actual fact there's only 1 for the CPU. The screws, they're being held on by washers actually. I thought those plastic washers would come off, but they're there to grip the screws so you don't accidentally drop them. Right, let's get that old thermal paste off. I was just going to use a bit of kitchen towel. This has gone really hard actually. You never know, it might be this that's causing the problem. It's lost its, it could have lost its thermal capabilities. It's almost like, got like putty. I'm not going to use anything else on this. I thought I might need to put some IPA on it to get it off, but it's literally just fallen off pretty much. That's how far gone it was. Don't need much of this, just a generic thermal grease. It says HY510 on there. I don't know if there's any different variants in these things. Probably put a bit too much on there, but just going to go over this with an old toothbrush and give it a quick clean out. There we go, nice and clean. So just an old toothbrush and gone through the fins. That's all there is to it. It's not hardly any dirt in there at all compared to some of the ones I've seen in the past. Laptops always seem to be worse. Right, I've got a bit of thermal paste on there. Now just a case of reassembling. I actually forgot to reattach the CPU fan, but realised after I'd put the case back on, so I had to take it back apart again to plug the CPU fan back in. I always do the screws diagonally opposite each other. These do have thread lock on. The blue stuff there, that stops the screw from working its way loose. Obviously it's probably worth putting some new thread lock on, but I'm not going to be moving this around much if I do continue to use it. It just sits in one place. But if you were doing a laptop, I would definitely recommend putting some thread lock on, because the screws do end up working their way loose, so they're being moved around all the time. Right, time to reassemble it now, and then I'll put it on soak test and we'll see how it works. Make sure that gasket sits in. Not quite sure why that's there actually. Must be to help avoid vibrations maybe, because there is a little subwoofer there. Well, I've just tried that once and it didn't seem to want to clip back in place properly. But I can see there's some location points there all the way around. So I'm going to start at the top, clip it in from the top first and bring it down. There we go. So start from the top when you're reassembling it, and then you'll feel it all clip into place. It should be all flush. I've never taken one of these apart before, so it's a bit of a learning curve. That's those little ribbons there. Just gently push it back in. There we go. Without bending it. They're the worst ones to do. Ethernet and power. I can see a pin slightly bent there. Don't know how that's happened. If you do get a bent pin, you can use one of those mechanical pencils to straighten the leg out. Just popping it over the end. I've just used a flat blade screwdriver there. There we go. Let's just pop the battery in, make sure it's still working before we do a complete reassembly. Excuse my dirty screen. It's the thing when you're handling these things, you get ever so grubby. Well, it's still coming on anyway. So that's something. Right, turn that off. Continue reassembly. Okay, so the smallest screw goes next to the battery connector there. Out of all the screws, that's the smallest one. Then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the longer screws. Right, that's the stand ones back in place. Then we've got some covers here. These use the plastic screws, or they're metal but they're for the plastics. Just roll it back a little bit so you find the thread, so you're not making a new thread. There's 2 of these covers as well. One that covers up the ribbon cable for the power button and all the other buttons. And then this one here, that's for the Ethernet cables and power cable. And then it's the 4 across the front here. And then it's just those little rubber bungs to go back in to cover up these screw holes. Hard drive cover. And then the RAM cover. What I'll do now is I'll put it on soak test and we'll see how we get on with it. Fingers crossed. Okay, we're back. I've had this on soak test for a couple of hours and unfortunately it still has the same problem. It lasted about 45 minutes to an hour, I think it was, before it shut down randomly. And then on the second time it did it, it was when I unplugged the mains cord. The battery was nearly charged, so I don't know why it completely shut down when I pulled the mains cord out. But it took a moment for it to come back on again as well, which seems to be a recurring theme. Even if the battery's fully charged, you can't power the machine up. So I removed the battery, just let it sit for 5 or 10 minutes and plugged it back in again. It is indicating towards an overheating fault, although I don't know what else I can look at in this machine. The fan software that I installed says there's 2 fans, but in actual fact, as you've seen in the machine, there's only 1, which is rather odd. If anybody has any suggestions of what else it could be, please let me know in the comments, because I'm at a loss now over this. And it seems quite a waste really of a useful machine. It's still only 10 years old, it's got Windows 10 in it, and it's quite handy for using things like web browsing and iTunes, as I mentioned before. Well, I guess that just about brings me to the end of this video. As always, thanks for watching, and until the next video, I'll be seeing you. Just a quick update, since editing this video, I've been using this Vaio and it's actually been working fine. It's been staying on for 4 or 5 hours at a time before I've shut it down myself. How long it will last, only time will tell. Again, thanks for watching. And if you did enjoy watching this video, you may want to take a look at some of my other videos on similar themes. I'm always buying something on eBay, some old piece of technology, and trying to repair it. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Thanks for watching.